Okay, welcome in. Happy Monday, everyone. Thanks for coming to school today. Please take out your Napoleon graphic organizer. We're going to finish talking about Napoleon and the French society today. After that, we're going to understand how the reign of Napoleon came to an end. So if you would grab out your graphic organizer, guys, looks like this. If you remember from on Friday, your graphic organizer looks like this. You scroll down, we've already done this part of it. We've looked at the documents, and you're going to do the concluding piece today. Okay? You're going to do this concluding piece. After looking at several arguments, you're going to choose your final answer to the question, was Napoleon helpful or harmful to French society? You have to pick a side and use at least two pieces of evidence to support your claim. All of the evidence you've collected is already on this document here that we've gone through on Friday. Just as a quick reminder, as you're looking at things, the PowerPoint back up here, this is what you're looking at. Was Napoleon helpful or harmful? Think about the things that we talked about Friday. Was he helpful? Yes, he was. He got rid of the estate system. He lowered taxes and bread prices. Peasants could now own land, which they weren't allowed to do before. There was freedom of religion. He set up public schools. He improved infrastructure, buildings, and roads. But there were some things he did that were hurtful to French society. He was a dictator, all right? He was an emperor, which is what they just fought that revolution to get rid of. There was no democracy or voting because he was the dictator. There was no freedom of speech or the press. If you remember the one document we had that we looked at where he censored lots of things. You weren't allowed to talk bad about him. You weren't allowed to talk about the old kings and queens that existed. Women didn't have rights. We saw that in the first document. And then slavery, it was hurtful a little bit because he did allow it in the French colonies when he first took over, but that is something that he did end up getting rid of. So we can see here different reasons why Napoleon was helpful and hurtful to French society. Now, what I need you to do is make a decision. Okay? Napoleon was helpful to French society or Napoleon was hurtful to French society? Please make sure you write a complete sentence to answer this question. Okay? Napoleon was helpful or Napoleon was harmful? Give me two pieces of evidence, and then you're going to do the part which we call development. All right? Defend your answer. Why is this evidence that you put in up here? Why is it important? How does it relate back to your thesis? So you'd say something like, should come in over here. This evidence is important because, tell me why the evidence you used is important. Remember your thesis, you must actually pick a side. Okay, you must actually pick a side. And so you would say something similar to this. Napoleon is helpful to French society. It would help if I knew how to spell. Okay, so Napoleon is helpful to French society. Then put in your evidence and then develop your evidence. Tell me why it's important. This you're going to tear off when you're finished. You're going to tear out of the packet. You're going to put your name up at the top. And then you're going to make sure that you turn this into the sub before you leave today. Once you're finished with this, you're going to go on to some notes. The sub should have given you a note paper that looks like this. And let's talk about Napoleon, how his reign kind of comes to an end. So, as we talk about Napoleon had all kinds of nationalism throughout France. He's a very nationalistic person. He had extreme pride in his country, extreme pride in France. If you think about it, there's people like that in America today where they have extreme pride in things that they do, where we love America. Napoleon had these same feelings about France. Um, Like I said, modern day examples, waving the American flag. Now in France, nationalism looked a little bit different. Um, Under the old France, under King Louis XVI, the king was the symbol of France. You were allegiant only to the king. People wore aristocratic fancy clothing like the king did. People would follow the estate system. But after the revolution, after we killed the king and the queen over here, we got rid of them, okay? The French flag is now the symbol of the country. There is allegiance to France, not the king. People wear more common clothing, and people call each other citizen. There's no longer first, second, and third estate. We are all citizens of France. This is a big deal. This is what nationalism looked like in France. Now, nationalism also looked like this. You can see by this map here, everything in purple, Napoleon conquered. He took over all of this stuff. Okay? All of this stuff he took over. Everything in purple. So you think about that. A couple years earlier, we're killing the king. Got chaos in France. Now we have this huge empire. And a lot of this was because of Napoleon. The problem with Napoleon is he's going to get greedy. Napoleon is going to try to conquer Russia. He's going to try to conquer all of this stuff. And this is going to be a big problem for Napoleon. He's actually going to have many, many of his soldiers killed. Right? I know it's hard to see on this chart, but he starts his march to Russia with about 500,000 soldiers. And he marches to Russia to try to take it over. And then he gets to Russia, gets defeated, and has to come back to France. And when he comes back to France, he only has about 10,000 soldiers. Not good. Not good for them at all. So, like we said, Napoleon's making some mistakes here. In 1812, the British are going to block France's ports. There's going to be a naval blockade, and it's going to hurt the French economy. The next year, he's going to try to invade Russia. As we saw from this chart, it's not going to work out too well. 400,000 soldiers, you can see here. After his march to Russia, takes him about 9 months to do. He's going to get to Russia. He's going to get defeated. He's going to have to come back and down to about 10,000 soldiers. So he's making some mistakes. He tries to invade Russia. Like I said, leaves France with 400,000 soldiers, comes back with way less than that, about 28,000. Russians burn their towns. Instead of letting Napoleon conquer them and take all their territory, the Russians burned down the towns. There was no food for his soldiers to eat either. Prussia, Austria, and England all ally themselves against France. And in 1814, Napoleon gets defeated and exiled. He gets kicked out of France. So things for Napoleon not looking good. Even this picture here. Look at poor Napoleon. He's not looking good. Looks like a defeated man. Doesn't look like the guy that we saw a couple of days ago riding on the horse. This is a defeated Napoleon. Well, after Napoleon gets defeated, we have to figure out what to do with all this territory that Napoleon conquered. So the people of Europe go to Austria, and in 1814, there's this thing called the Congress of Vienna. And here they accomplish the following. All the people that Napoleon kicked out of power get to come back to power. They redraw the map of Europe to surround France with strong states. They want France to not be able to conquer all of Europe like they did before. And they actually, which is kind of interesting, France ends up with what we call a constitutional monarchy with King Louis XVIII. They bring his brother back. They cut the head off of King Louis XVI and then bring his brother back to power. So we fight this revolution in France. We get rid of the king. We kill the king. And then in the end, about 20 years later, after we kill the first king, we actually bring his brother back with limited powers, the constitutional monarchy, but they bring the king back. Super crazy things going on there in France. So you can see here, France, after the Congress of Vienna, France is back to a little tiny country again instead of the big empire that covered most of this area here. Just back to regular size France again. Now, you've got the notes. You did the other work about was Napoleon helpful or harmful. What I need you to do now, at the bottom of your note paper, there's a box that says summarize the information above. Please take a couple of minutes and summarize the notes that you just took. Please summarize them at the bottom. Okay? Other than that, we are done for today. If you have any questions, ask the sub or send me an email and I will answer you. Have a great day, everybody.